Welcome back to Brownlow Books. We are entering the second week of July here, so about midpoint for the year. So I just thought I would do a little check-in for how I'm doing in my reading challenge that I set for the year, and what some of my favorites of the year have been. Pretty easy. So my reading challenge I set at 50, because that's attainable for me. I like having the reading challenge and keeping track, but I don't like enormous amounts of pressure on something that's supposed to be enjoyable. So I set a very easy 50, knowing that I read generally about a book a week, and give myself some buffer for if I have things going on, like I have the past 3 weeks. So, yes, I'm at 27 out of 50, so I am past my halfway point, just slightly past halfway through the year. It works. So, I want to talk about some of my favorites so far of the year. The first one I want to talk about, nonfiction. I don't have it here. I lent it out to a friend. They still have it. But for me, nonfiction this year, Rainbow History Class, a guide, or what's the full title? A Guide Through Queer and Trans History. Yeah. That's the nonfiction I've enjoyed the most this year in a traditional printed manner. So, that's one of my favorites so far of the year. Also, we're still in the nonfiction. Ducks, 2 Years in the Oil Sands by Kate Beaton. Graphic memoir, so nonfiction and also graphic. Definitely one of my favorites of the year so far. And I can say that this year and last year because I've read it twice now, because I reread it when it showed up on the Canada Reads list and was actually the Canada Reads 2023 winner. I picked it. All right. So this has definitely been one of my favorites of the year. I've reviewed it in a video up there, you'll see. So you can see that, right? Yeah, we'll put that there. That's my first two for the year. Rainbow History Class, nonfiction. Ducks, nonfiction. Moving into fiction, but staying in the same format. Thirsty Mermaids has been a surprise delight for me this year. A little pod of mer people who are non-traditional. You're non-traditional mermaids. I just watched a 4-part documentary. Oh, I forget the name of it now. On Netflix about mer people. Surprisingly delightful. Loved it. I guess I'm in my mermaid era now. Usually it's like 11-year-old girls. Instead it's going to be 38-year-old me. So, yes. Thirsty Mermaids, surprise delight. I really love that this year. So, moving into the next, more traditionally printed things. I did a lot of middle grade because I did my middle grade May, and then I did one as well into June. And I just generally read middle grade whenever I feel like it anyways, so no biggie. But this year, Attack of the Black Rectangles. Surprise delight. It is wonderful. Kids are often in their own little world. They don't really think about the feelings and troubles of others. And I feel like this book just does such a wonderful job of showing that other people are just like you. They have their own problems. They have their own feelings. No one's going to be 100% all the time. And just the rich complexity of this book is wonderful. Because it's about censorship of books, but it's not just about censorship of books. And the grandpa in this, oh my god, what a fucking cinnamon roll. I love him so much. So yeah, this is wonderfully complex. I think it's really great for that middle grade kind of age where they're learning that things go beyond themselves, It's just delightful writing. So, yes. Next up, I have Greenwood by Michael Christie, which was also on the Canada Reads shortlist and came in 4th, I believe it was. I put it in my second spot. But yeah, came in 4th. Also a Scotiabank Giller Prize long list. Good for you. The way this novel is structured is like Tree Rings. And I love that. So you start in 2038 or whatever it is, and then you go back to 2008, and then you're going back to like the 70s, and then like the 40s, I think it was? 30s, because it was the Great Depression, duh. And then goes back to like 1908, and after you hit 1908, you go back out on the 30s on the other end again. Love that. I love the way this book was structured. I love the actual historical fiction, the 1908, the 1930, whatever, even the 1974. Not so thrilled about 2008 or the present, future, whatever. But the really historical parts of it, I loved it. My heart. Temple Van Horn from Estevan, Saskatchewan will remain one of my most favorite characters ever, anywhere. The delight of this book is magnificent. Ignore my tags, but even the side of it looks like Tree Bark, which is just an extra beautiful little touch. This languished on my shelf for a few years. I only read it now because it was on Canada Reads, and I'm just like, how many other delightful things are hiding here that I have not read? And I'm just like overwhelmed by choice and anxiety picking a new book now. Not gonna lie. So, last book on the list. I'm not sure you've seen the review for this yet. I don't know when I have it scheduled for. Sometime in July. Whiskey When We're Dry. Apparently I love a non-traditional Western because this is the 3rd Western I've read, the only 2nd non-traditional one, and I love the first one, and I love the second one, and hated the 3rd traditional Western, so like... but yeah, Whiskey When We're Dry, female protagonist, young, very much not pretty. She is not described as pretty, and she is also, not a madam or working at a brothel, which is the more traditional place for women to be in Westerns, am I right? So, the non-traditional is delightful, and the fact that this was written by a man really fucking confuses me, because, like, it is so, from, like, the perspective of our main character, a girl in this, is just, like, fucking spot on, and I'm just like, you had help, John, didn't you? Right? John, you had help. And I was just like, this, another thing that's been on my shelf for probably 2-3 years. I put it into my book club book choice when I got it, because I was like, oh, I'm really excited to read that. And then it just, like, never got picked in our randomizer. And I was just like, am I ever going to read this? Should I take it off and read it? And then it got picked, and I was like, fuck yes. Like, right when I was considering taking it off that list so I could read it, it got picked. And it is just so wonderful. We have a lovely queer love story in it. We have, like, the way the sections are broken down into, like, what's happening in each one is so wonderful. And just, like, all of it. I just can't even. It's one of those things where you're just almost like, I almost don't want to talk about it because I love it that much and I don't want other people to talk about it so it doesn't ruin it for me. It's mine. It's one of those books where like, no, that's mine. We're not gonna talk about it. Yeah. I love it. These are in no particular order because I went by genre, but like... I loved this book so much. It just felt so original and fresh. Especially given that it's a historical fiction, which you often find, I find, repeating the same kind of thing pretty frequently. How many girls in period clothing facing away from the camera during World War II can you have? Am I right? But, yeah, this one is just like a fucking knockout for me. I fucking loved it. I loved it so much. So, put it up there. So those 5 plus the one that's not here. Best 6 of the year for me so far. I haven't... I've read a lot of good books this year. I'll say that. So, like, for these to be real special to me, mean a lot, you know? I've read a lot of good books. I read the worst book of my life this year as well, but, yeah. I've also read some really good books. Like, these 2 up here, probably among my favorite books ever right now, which is awesome. I mean, I try not to, like... I want to say I try not to have favorites, but, like, you have favorites. And you're like, yeah, those other books were good, but is it this, you know? And so, like, every Western has always been compared to Patrick DeWitt's The Sisters Brothers. And now I'm like, is every Western I try to read going to be compared to Whiskey When We're Dry? Because, like, good fucking luck to ya. You know? It's just, everything on here just feels very original to me. Very fresh, very different from what we've been reading. And so it's just, yeah, some of them are a few years old, but I'm reading them this year and they still feel like, yeah, you've done something special here. So, not to say that the other books I've read this year were not good, except for this one. Literally worst book I've ever read in my life. I've read some shitty books, if you've seen that short series. So yeah. I would love to know what your top books of the year are, so, like, tell me in the comments. Maybe I'll find my second half of the year favorites. Who knows? But yeah. That's me for the year. Let me know what's yours. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you around next time.